Hey guys, what's up? This is Scher talking. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we'll be talking about the two upcoming banners for the second part of the Lunar New Year Festival. We have Final Emperor, Hannibal, and Sophia as our main banner, and as a secondary banner, we have some returning styles. We have Valentine's Rocket Bouquet, Light Days Final Emperor, and Global Exclusive Katarina. I would talk about the Global Exclusive Katarina banner because it doesn't have much things to say. Actually is a trap banner. I don't think this banner is worth investing unless you are a real fan of Katarina, because we can kinda summon for better characters in the future that will fill her hole. The same Final Emperor can also work very similar to Global Exclusive Katarina, although she can use a Double Crush on turn 1, he can use a upgraded version of Double Crush on turn 2, and, well, you can still use him for boss fights, and some strategies also requires you to do more damage on the turn 2, especially if you are running a lot of fast characters that can use the fast property to attack on first turn and kill a wave of enemies. So, the good thing is that you can go at least up to the 4th summon, because you will only be using 2 summons. You will have to pay for the 1st and the 3rd, but the 2nd and the 4th will be free. So maybe that will help you get the character if you have like 6,000 gems on your disposal. Okay, so Final Emperor banner is very interesting in my opinion because of what they made to Sophia. I don't really know the large impact of Sophia because of her changes, but, well, I'll leave Sophia for last. Let's start with Final Emperor. And to do so, we have to go to now our SaGa website. And as you can see, Final Emperor has 4 different SS styles. This was the first one that we got in the game, this one here. And then there's the second one that's also on the returning banner for Global Exclusive Katarina. This one is very, very bad. There's barely any reason to get this version of Final Emperor. But then we have the newest one. We got to summon this one. And with ScherBR and our other banner, we also had this version here of Final Emperor. This one is also important to make this one better. You don't need the Platinum style of Final Emperor. I still don't have this one. It's a very funny thing. As you can see, the one that has the highest STR is the one that we could summon on ScherBR. It's limited, and if you have this version, you may want to have the future and upcoming version of Final Emperor. Another point is that up to this point on Japan, there's no other style for Final Emperor. This is the final and last style for Final Emperor. So, well, let's just give a look on his modifiers. As you can see, 95% modifier is pretty high for the standards on this game right now. It's comparable to, you know, Gustav, Global Exclusive Katarina. They will be the top damage dealers for Great Swords. While also we have a version of Ellen that also has a very high attack. The one that we could summon on the half anniversary banner. So I believe these 4 characters are on the top of the slash damage, and if you have 4, you have a Dragoon Strike formation working for a lot of damage. But do you need all of them? They have some clashes between their skills, but man, I want to see a triple Double Crush in this game. We also be getting another future style of Golden Lion that should be probably on the next month that has Double Crush, as I imagine, using 3 characters with Double Crush, and then this version of Final Emperor with another upgraded version of the same attack. As you can see, 95 is pretty high. Like I said, he also has a respectable endurance, not as high as Gustav, but respectable. He's not as fast as he wanted to be because he has an AoE attack that needed a little more agility. He doesn't have this. The White Days version has, but, well, this version is pretty bad. Very bad intelligence, so don't expect him to land any debuffs. Well, not on hard content anyway, and the other stats are not so important. Well, looking at his skills, he didn't receive any buff, at least not that we know. And he has an arrow for STR, 2 for endurance. You need to use his limited style to get 2 arrows for STR. This one is better for level ups. And, well, first skill is called Holy Light. It hits all enemies. It's only sun damage. It's very comparable to the version of Death Albert that we received recently with Ultra Deluxe Death Banner, where you only have sun, and the character uses Slash as the main source of damage, but the damage is sun. Remember, it's still just a Great Sword skill, then you don't need to bring a weapon with Holy Elemental. The interesting thing is that it only uses 3 BP. It's insane. It's very, very cheap. But there's one downside to this, is that this has like the lowest power possible in the game, I think. Usually, you have at least 7 modifier for power, and this one is 6. And let me tell you something. The normal attack of the game uses the 7 modifier. So this is a little less than the normal attack. But because you can level up this and you cannot level up a normal attack, it will still do a little more, but very low difference to a normal attack. But if you have a very, very high STR maxing him to level 50, it will still do very good damage. That's the same case, or at least a similar case to global exclusive Katarina Glacial's Word, where the modifier was not so high, but because she has a very high STR and could be useful for when enemies are weak to cold, you can still do the same with this version of Final Emperor. His second skill is Beer Crush. This is a very old skill, actually. You could use this with the original Gustav, with some other flash damage dealers. And while not bad, it's not the reason why you're summoning for this character. It's also worth to note that he has access to 2 skills that are slot 3. Beer Crush is usually found on the 3rd slot, but here is on the 2nd slot. And it can be reduced to 9. It's a good cycling because you can use it every 3 turns, but it will get old in the future. Double Crush can be used with 10 BP, and it's way better than Beer Crush. The last skill is Mumaken. I don't know what will be the translated name. And it attacks random enemies twice, so just like Double Crush. It has special effect against Devil. Devil is Demon, it's not the same as Undead, so it will not give special damage against Devil, and it will be stopped if the enemy counters you. Well, just like Double Crush, the thing here is that if you are using this against Devil or Demons, you deal very good damage. I believe it's 20% if I'm not wrong, increase into the modifier of the attack when you hit for the special weakness of your enemy. And it's 36 modifier, S power instead of A from Double Crush. Well, let's just open Double Crush to compare. Here we have Double Crush, 25% more damage, but you lose your turn 1 damage because Double Crush can reach 10 BP for turn 1 damage. But Final Emperor attack, it's only turn 2 because it's 12 BP instead of 10, once you fully awaken. Back to Final Emperor. In his case, this is not exactly that much of a problem because he has access to a very cheap attack that I'll be explaining, but it depends if you got the S style. Well, you start the fight by using normal attack. It's hard to use this guy here in some fights, but also not that hard. Let me explain. If you don't have the inheritance, you can still think about something here. Leave Beer Crush on 12. Get Musaken on 12 as well. So it will try to use Mumaken. And Awaken Holy Light once. It will use 2 BP on the first wave, 2 BP on the second wave, and on the third wave it will have 12 BP to use Mumaken on the last wave. Can you see how it works? First wave you have way too many enemies. Second wave you have way too many enemies. You prefer an AoE attack. And on the last wave you have a strong enemy on the stage that I'm speaking, and then he will just unleash a very powerful attack that can help you defeat the last wave faster. Because we have a lot of AoE damage dealers with fast property now, like Bune, like Barthélemy, like the Coppelia, well, it makes sense to have this type of combination. Well, but it's not just that. Let's just give a look on his passives. Imperial Guard will increase the defense of all the ally survivors, but only 1 turn. I don't really like this passive. I was expecting them to give him a power charge too, so that he could get 12 VP on first turn, but he does not have this. So Imperial Guard is the first passive. On the beginning of a round or a wave, he will give a guard up buff to all allies that are still alive. So this reduces 15% of all incoming damage for at least 1 turn. Well, I don't think this is so good because he may be very strong for farming, also good for bosses, but only the first turn is not something that I like. The second one is the Secret of the Great Sword, increases 10% of the damage by equipping sword. So you always be equipping sword, you cannot equip any other type of weapon. And third up 4, and 15% increase in damage. So a total of 25% increase in damage. Well, some of the recent damage dealers can have more than that, like even Ellen has 45 when she's on full HP. The passives are not the best ones in my opinion, could have been better if he had replaced the first one with something more aligned to damage, but it's still pretty good enough based on how high his SDR is and the modifier R. But I still believe he needed a little more than that just to guarantee his spot for a while. He will have a lot of competition, it will be way better to have something for him to stay on the top. So now let's talk about inheritance. The Platinum style has Paralyze, also has SDR the buff. Well, he doesn't have a very high intelligence. The third skill is a triple S damage, but it deals less damage than the third skill from our version. It's only better if you are facing a boss challenge where you have more than one target, you want to deal damage to this specific enemy. Well, that's the only reason why you use this. For White Days Final Emperor, the only skill that really matters is the third one as well, because it deals roll damage and can reach 8 power. That's pretty high. The problem is just that the White Day version really didn't have any passives or status. And the first skill, Plume Opening, has okay damage modifier on 14 and D. On 15 you already have C, so it's very close to C damage. And uses up to 2 BP, and it uses 3 or 2 BP on Awakened and recovers 1 more BP. So in the end you have a skill that uses only 1 BP with a good damage, and you can cycle this in boss fights, so you can wait to have the third skill available again. And if you have this version, you'll be pretty happy with the results. The last skill, Car's Word, I don't know the global name, it's also good in the future. Right now it's not. It gets updated to 39 modifier S power and AoE damage, very good for farming. But for now, this is all you have with Final Emperor. In my opinion, Final Emperor is good, he's strong. I don't think that he is better altogether than the Bucket Hill Gustav or Global Exclusive Katarina. He's just like on the same levels, in my opinion. He may deal more damage, but he loses some utility because he cannot use it on turn 1, but he brings a new strategy where you can start with 2 AoEs and then finish with a very powerful single target. He is on the same levels. Gustav is a 9.5 out of 10, Global Exclusive Katarina is a 9.5 out of 10, and this guy will still be the same grade as them. You can use any of them and they will work very similarly, with this one being a little better because of the AoE option. But for the end of the day, if you have these two styles, you really don't need Final Emperor. If you have only one of them and you want to increase the damage of your Slash squad, getting him do not hurt, especially because his banner is not bad. Well, we have to go to the second character now. So, the second character is Hannibal. That is a very fun thing because Hannibal is actually a generic unit from Romancing Saga 2, and he comes with a very nice design based on dragon attacks, and well, as you can see, the modifiers are pretty high. 97% on this point of the game is pretty high. He already gets 15 as a bonus as well, 13 as a bonus to endurance, so he does not have a very bad endurance. He can be used on the front lines, especially if you are using, say, the Dragon Strike formation where you can place someone in the front, but I still prefer him to be on the middle where you get 50% increase in STR, because his damage is insane for this current place of the game. His dexterity is pretty bad. You have to max this guy because the dexterity may fail some attacks. So agility is 70% modifier, intelligence is pretty bad. Will very high, interesting, that is higher than endurance, so if you use him on the middle line, it's pretty good because, well, he receives more AoE attacks instead of just single target attacks. And, well, love and charm doesn't really matter. And now let's just check the skills to see what makes this guy so interesting. As you can see, the first one is called Chosen, and it has a 19 modifier with C power. It's pretty fine for an attack that uses only 3 BP on Awakened. You are getting a lot of damage for what you are spending on BP. Sadly, the second skill is not so good. It's a Dual Dragons attack in Global. It's an indirect attack where you attack a row of enemies, and this attack will be upgraded in the future. So for the future is okay. It's row damage. It's not easy to find a stage where the enemies are aligned in a row. But when it works, and it should do very good damage because of such a high STR. And the last skill is the reason why you summon for this guy, because he has an insane modifier, the highest one we have available in the game right now, 73 triple S damage. Downhill Dragon is an amazing attack. You can be fired up on 12 BP, and surprise, he has power charge too, so that he can use this on turn 1. If you are satisfied with your immediate turn 1 damage because of Sweet Trap, you'll be even more satisfied with Downhill Dragon. It's an amazing damage that will stay relevant and on the top of the Pierce damage for some time. While he do faces competition with the today's standards for Japan, he is still useful there. You can still use this guy if you fail to some other ones. So, it's not just because of the skill, it's also because of his passives. While having Power Charge 2, he also has Weakness Concentration 4 and Fired Up 4. That makes for 35% increase in damage. While Final Empress has only 25%, he has 35. Higher modifier for STR and also higher passives. And now for inheritance, you really should ignore this altogether, because the only style that you can inherit stuff is this one, and all the attacks are pretty bad. Just forget about inheritance and treat him just like Emilia, where Emilia do not need any inheritance or any other style to perform. The thing about Hannibal is just that you will just have to stick with single targets most of the time, and the cycling of him is pretty nice. You start with Downhill Dragon, and then on the second turn you can just use Chosen, and then keep using Chosen. If you are farming on stage that doesn't have many enemies, or you're just focusing on an enemy with a high HP. And he would never need to use normal attack. You can use sometimes the roll attack, but, well, it's pretty circumstantial. So in the end, he also deserves the same grade, a 9.5 out of 10. I believe that he's a little better. He fills a role that is hard to fill. It's hard to find good damage dealers for Pierce, and he's the best one we will have for a while. He lacks an actual AoE attack or something that increases his utility like a special effect. It's just damage, raw, pure damage. Okay, so, well, very good character. Now for the last style, we have Sophia. And we cannot look too much on this data because this is the Japanese version of her, and she was buffed for global. There are some things that are now weaker, and some other things are now better. So, on the Japanese version, she was more of a damage dealer. She had an 88% modifier for an STR, that's pretty high. And also she had lower love when compared to the older style. As you can see, only 37%. But in order to understand this, we need to check the global version of her. Let's try to make something that will help you understand. This information comes from SaGa Wiki Discord and also from Rider43. Thank you so much for posting this. As you can see, Award Sophia, that's how we call her, got a debuff to her STR. Now she only has 70% instead of 88%. This is a downgrade, sadly. But it's because they wanted to use her modifiers differently. I believe they didn't need to debuff her because, well, she's still not the best blunt damage dealer. She will be better by dealing damage and also being a supportive character. But, well, this is what they did. They increased her endurance from 56 to 58. Barely any difference. And then the dexterity is the same, agility is the same, intelligence is just a little more. I believe that is just to increase her chance to use Bone Crusher because she's still not as good as a Mage AoE attacker. Light Ball is not easy to use with her. And then we have the same will, but an increase to love. 13 modifier increase to love. So what they did is just remove her STR and gave her love. Is it worth? My opinion, no. But, well, her abilities were changed for better. We'll have to check the Japanese version again, so let's remove the image, and we'll just scroll down to her attacks. Well, the first attack, it's called Blow Heals. I don't know what will be the global version name. She attacks with 13 modifier, deep power. Not bad, not good. But recovers herself with 15 power. That is interesting because it's not so bad if a character has a very high love and charm. Let's give a look here. They have some calculations. Right now in Japan, she can heal for as much as 500. So in global, she will be healing 400 when maxed, I believe. And that's good for a character that can be attacked a lot of times if she's used in the front lines. Well, I believe that VP is kind of hard to keep this up because it's 5 VP on Fully Awakened, but, well, it is what it is. The second attack is double hit, and it has a 31 modifier. That's pretty high for an attack that uses 8 or 6 when awakened VP. It's even higher than have it on Earth and all the other strong attacks that we have for slot number 2. Because she had a very high STR, this was very good for her. But now she reduced her STR. I believe this will still be nice, but not as strong as the Japanese version. For the last skill, we have Grand Slam. This attack is, well, something you already saw a lot of times when facing stronger enemies like the Juggernaut or the Colossus. They use this all the time, and it's a very powerful attack. Now it's your time to do this. You can use her with Corpellian if you want, because Corpellian has fast, so that she can use on turn 3 or turn 2. You can just choose between the two, and if your enemies are weak against Blunt, this will work pretty fine. Well, now for passives. The passives on the Japanese version are different from the global ones. Let's just give a look here. She had Weakness Concentration 3, so 15% increase in damage, and for the 4, for more 15% increase in damage. 30% increase when hitting weak enemies. And that is mostly when you were using her in Japan, because you wanted to use her as a damage dealer. While she still had this Hope to Trust, that is just like the original version of Sophia, where she heals everyone when she dies. And she heals for a power of 15, so you can probably heal by 400, 500 HP. It is okay. Still use it as a strategy against some bosses. But like I said, she got a buff to global, and her passes are now different. Let's just give a look at the image again. For the first one, we have Weakness Advantage 3. Change it to Sentinel of Hope. When all allies are still surviving, still alive, reduces the damage for all of them for a medium attack. That should be 10%. I am not entirely sure, but I believe that's it. And now for her ability number 3. It was changed from Fired Up 4 to Link of Gallantry. On the start of a turn, she will grant herself and one random surviving ally an attack boost that is a morale buff with a large effect, but only one turn. Well, let's try to understand this. Start of a turn, not a wave, so every new turn she will get this buff, and also will give a buff to a random surviving ally. Random means it sometimes will help you giving this to a very powerful attacker like Hannibal, or it may give a buff to a character that's not a damage dealer, like a tank. But it works for both physical and magical attackers, so it's pretty nice. But how much does it buffs? Well, we are not entirely sure, but it should be 35% increase. And why do we know this? Well, this image here. As you can see, we have this skill called Invited by Flamenco that uses 14 BP. It has a morale up effect of 35% to all characters in your squad. So it's not easy to use because it's 14 VP, but the character also has power charge so that she can start with this. It is also fast, so it goes before your other character's attack. So this is also one of the easiest ways to increase your damage after normal buffs. Imagine a scenario where you're facing a boss and she buffed, say, Hannibal. You use Hannibal, you get more damage, and then she buffs on the second turn someone else. You don't attack all turns with your best attacks. You will wait for the character to be buffed. In the meanwhile, you will be stacking this character BP so that when it gets the buff, it deals more damage. It's interesting, right? The only bad thing here is about combos, since you'll be choosing the perfect time to use attacks. But if you are using triple S damage dealer, you can just wait till she buffs this character and then you use the triple S attack. It's interesting, it's a different mechanic, it's a different strategy, opens new possibilities in the game, and I believe that allows her to be unique. I believe that she's like a 9.0 out of 10, an interesting buff and support unit that can also heal. But is she better than Princess White Rose? I don't think so. When you need cleanse to remove your paralyze, poison and other stuff, she will be better. She also heals more. But can you run both? Yes, you can. You can even make the Sophia a tank that stays on the front line on the Tiger Shark formation, where she uses the first attack all the time. Well, it still works. Let's remove this image here. Imagine a scenario where you just keep using the first skill. She heals herself all turns. You equip her with the best equipments that you have, and she will be giving a buff to someone else, and also increasing her normal attack, and dealing respectable damage. Well, she would not be using LP for this, so every time that she dies, she would just use 1 LP to heal the squad. Is she better than Norwal's daughter? I don't think so too. In the case of Norwal's daughter, you get more status, you also recover BP, and in the case of Sophia, you can further increase the damage by the Morale buff, and further increase the resistance by the Guard Up buff. You can use both together if you don't need cleans, and it's actually a good strategy to not bring 4 damage dealers, you know? Something may happen and you may need 2 healers. Well, let's just get back now to the first image and decide. Is it worth summoning for this banner? Well, it's always a tough question. The Final Emperor is better if you only have 1 good damage dealer for Slash. I mean, a top damage dealer, not just good because he's on the top. Hannibal is a good choice, especially if you skip it Brownie from Corpelia's banner. And Sophia adds new utility and buffs to different squad compositions. If you have at least 60k gems, it may be a good idea to summon for them if you can fill those characters in your squads. If you don't have many, I believe you can still wait because we will have round 3, most probably. It's not a guarantee thing, but I am suspecting they will be doing a round 3. And I also believe they will be releasing a global exclusive pretty soon, and a surprise banner on the end of the month. What do you think about Josephine in the end of the month? I believe it's possible. So think well and decide upon this, okay? Thank you all for watching this video. Please subscribe if you still have it, and if you want to support the channel, you can use the links here in the description of the video. We see each other on the next one. Bye!